Welcome to the Vital Living Forum, and today we're focusing on how to navigate the Elder Services Network. Our goal today is to provide you with a bird's eye view of the network and a framework for finding resources. Joining me today are Lindsay Taylor with the Senior Resource Alliance, Ignacio Quinones with North Star Senior Advisors, and Kizzy Chambers with RR Care Management. Welcome to you all. So, Lindsay, tell us, what is the Elder Services Network?
So the Elder Services Network is made up of different federal, state, local agencies, programs, nonprofits, fee-for-service agencies that provide services that help older adults remain independent in their homes and communities.
And Kizzy, how would people access the network?
So accessing the network, actually you'll call the 800 number. There's information resources you can find on the internet. You can call, when you call the 800 number, they generally give you information. They give you, based on your needs, they'll give you information who to call, whether it's durable medical equipment, whether you need a case manager or care manager, whether you need assisted living facilities. So they start that process if you make contact with them and give you the resources.
And Ignacio, a lot of people believe that once you get to a certain age, you actually go into a facility. But the truth is, most older adults are living independently. Is that true?
That is correct. We see that most of them are still pretty independent. They want to hold on to that independence as much as possible at home. So that's a very common theme.
And you know, Kizzy, once somebody goes through a crisis, they then think that, well, I kind of got over that crisis and I don't really need any resources, but that's not necessarily true.
Not necessarily true at all. Oftentimes there's another crisis waiting to happen because the first crisis was just fixed just for that moment. So then there's another crisis. So it's always imperative that family members and our older adults understand that you need to have a plan in place, and not just a short-term plan, but a long-term plan in place.
And Ignacio, tell us about the community resource document that provides an overview of the program.
Yeah, so it's an excellent document. It has an abundance of resources. So highly encourage folks to get their hands on that. Again, you can call Orange County, you can request a document, but it's a phenomenal piece that just outlines so many beneficial resources in the community.
So, Lindsay, what's the first step to finding resources?
The first step to finding resources is going to be to call one of the helplines that are available. So there is the Elder Helpline out of Senior Resource Alliance that focuses on resources for older adults and people with disabilities. There's also 211, which is just the generalized hotline for resources for people from all walks of life. And then there's also 311, the government hotline for resources as well. The first step would be to call one of those.
And Kizzy, one of the interesting things is that when somebody, before they start this journey, they need to get organized before they make that call. Tell us about that.
Yes. So you need to know what you're looking for. That's the number one thing. In order to do that, you like to highlight what your concerns are, what your needs are. You want to better understand your medical condition. You want to understand your activity of daily living, your instrumental activities of daily living, because the more you can share with the person on the other end, the better they can help coordinate and give you information. You want to cater the resources to your needs. So you want to document, create a log of information, but also create a log of each individual you spoke to and what services they provide. So that way you have an opportunity to go back and reflect on that information.
And Ignacio, is it important to know some of the key terms that you might experience over that call, like ADLS and IADLS, to understand what that means when people are talking to you?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely beneficial to understand the terminology, if possible. Now, we know that not everybody knows medical terminology, right? So, but knowing specifically what the individual has going on, potentially activities, daily living, is one for sure. Maybe diagnoses, if you know specific diagnoses that may be going on. What that's going to do is create that roadmap as Kizzy mentioned here, to help that resource understand, identify those specific resources for those specific diagnoses and whatnot. So it could definitely be beneficial. And if you don't know the medical terminology too much, you can definitely, Google some of that as well. But it will definitely be beneficial to know those. And
along those lines, Lindsay, it's also probably important to have like a list of the ADLS and IADLS so that you can share that.
Yeah, it would be a good idea to have a list of the types of tasks you might be starting to struggle with, the types of tasks you're needing help with in your home, your wants and your needs. That way, when you're on the phone with someone, you don't suddenly blink and forget what it was you wanted to ask for. And when you explain your needs to one of the helpline specialists, they are going to help you solve the problem that's most important to you first, or the need that's most pressing for you.
And I just want to add, the IADLs is very important because it ties in the cognitive as well as the physical. So helping understanding how your cognition affects your day-to-day ability to get dressed, to go to the bathroom, to even write a check, that's important. And the more you have that information to provide, the better resources you can receive. And you don't want to eliminate anything when you're trying to maximize your resources.
So what is a call like? I mean, from hello to the rest of the call, what happens? What's the person on the other end of the phone asking, and what information should you know and expect to have?
Go ahead.
Sure. So when you first call in, your call is going to be answered by a trained and knowledgeable information specialist. They're first probably going to gather some demographics from you so they can better understand you, where you live, so they can provide resources specific to your area and your age group. And then they'll start asking you what it is you need help with. While
you're providing the information, you want to give them, understand your income, because that's important. It makes a difference. It's what type of resources you may qualify for. Mm-hmm. You want to understand that there are other resources out there. Maybe if it's not from a nonprofit, but for a profit business, there's other services out there. So you want to make sure that you have a big picture. And so the more information you have, like your income, your age, what is your long-term plan? What type of insurance do you have? What type of long-term care benefits you have, if you have any? What does your support system looks like? Because some of those services may be beneficial from a family caregiver standpoint as well.
All right. Well, Lindsay, Ignacio, and Kizzy, that's been a great discussion, but we are going to talk a little bit in our next segment about the types of resources that are available in this network, so stay with us. Welcome back to the Vital Living Forum on navigating through the Elder Services Network. And in this segment, we'll discuss the main helplines, the subsidized network of elder services, dementia resources, and legal resources. Joining me are Lindsay Taylor, Ignacio Quinones, and Kizzy Chambers. Now, in the last segment, we talked about making that first call to the helplines, but Lindsay, what will you find out? What information is there when you do make that call?
Sure. So like we talked about, a knowledgeable specialist is going to answer your call, and they have access to a database of community resources for whatever it is someone's need might be. And they're going to link you to a list of nonprofits, subsidized programs, fee-based agencies, if you can afford it, that provide the service you're looking for. And the list of resources any individual receives can vary based on each individual's need. The Elder Helpline can also schedule a telephone screening if needed to see if you may qualify for different state and federally funded programs for in-home supports.
And Kizzy, what types of programs are in the subsidized network?
Types of programs are different programs with the Medicaid waiver programs, which helps with long-term care for if you need to be placed in a nursing home and need some assistance financially from nursing home placement. Based on your qualification, it offers some services for caregiver services. There are programs for dementia, Alzheimer's, particularly that offer different levels of services. There are some caregiver services that they offer where some of the Medicaid programs actually pays the caregiver to kind of provide that caregiver support services in the homes. And then from the unsubsidized, you have care management services that help facilitate and navigate, coordinate services for the older population. You also have placement assistant programs when you're looking for maybe appropriate housing, assisted living communities that can help and assist the older population as well as the family members.
Let me just add, in the different subsidized space, there's also some programs that can cover adult daycare, nutrition assistance like Meals on Wheels or congregate meal sites, and in-home support for things like cleaning, cooking, bathing, and dressing.
Sure, definitely.
And are there requirements for these services?
There are. The requirements vary based on the program. The Medicaid long-term care Kizzy was talking about has different requirements, but all the other elder subsidized programs in general, you'll need to be age 60 or older, fairly low income, and require assistance with your ADLs and your IADLs we talked about earlier.
And I think it's important to talk about that there's a difference between Medicare and Medicaid and the services that most people get confused about with the Medicaid long-term care program. Sometimes they are misinformed in the community. That's why education is very important, that they feel like Medicare covers those services. So the Elder Helpline is very instrumental in helping you understand the differences between the Medicare and Medicaid type programs that are often needed in the community.
And are there wait lists for these services?
Yes, there's a wait list. I don't even think they call it a wait list any longer. I think they call it a priority list. Is that correct, Lindsay?
That is correct. Yeah. There is a priority list. There's waiting lists for essentially all of the programs, unfortunately. And it's not really a first come, first serve waiting list. It goes by each individual's need. And those with the most need and the highest frailty level get assistance first when funding is available for those programs.
Yeah.
And Ignacio, what would be the second step to finding resources?
I would say execute on those resources, get those set up as quickly as possible. In my personal opinion, being proactive is very important. So if you can engage those resources timely, prevent things from potentially progressing, that's going to be important, whether it is finding assistance coming to the home, specific programs. Nutrition is key. So I would say engaging on those resources, utilizing those resources as quickly as possible would be the very next step.
Many medical providers have a social worker in the office that if you express your needs while you're at your medical appointment, ideally your medical provider or a staff can also offer you some resources as well.
Yeah. And Lindsay, are there some services that are typically not offered?
There are some services that can be more difficult to find. Mainly those would be financial resources, such as ongoing rental assistance or just ongoing bill payment assistance, money to repair a car, and things like that. However, even if you think a service isn't available for your need, there's no harm in calling the helpline and asking. If that service isn't available, they'll help you brainstorm and get creative on what other options you have. Maybe there's a bill you can cut back on to allow you to save some money to repair your car. Maybe you can reach out to family and friends, so there's always other options.
So, Kizzy, what would be the third step to finding resources?
The third step to finding resources is probably not really finding it, but to access the resources, to actually utilize the resources, all the information you received from the Elder Hotline, from your primary care physician, maybe family and friends. I mean, that could be a third step, is talking with family and friends in the community. Maybe go to your community neighborhood center where they also generally have resources. And then when all that bucket of resources you receive, actually make effort to make phone calls, document the information you spoke about, document what the program offers, whether you actually qualify for the program at that time or not. But I always say don't ever get rid of any resources you have access to, because you may not qualify at that time, but later on you may do qualify.
I would also add, it is important to educate your family, your network, to what those resources are, right?
Yes.
So we find that there's usually a decision maker or a power of attorney.
Yeah.
So it is important for the family to have that discussion at times on what resources are available, make sure everybody's on board with those resources, and then again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that they act upon those, take advantage of those resources, because that's another thing that we do find that sometimes it is a little chaotic at times. So making sure everybody's on board and they're taking advantage of those resources is very important.
And I want to talk about some of the specific issues that some elders may have. Are there specific dementia care services, Ignacio?
Yes, there are. So a great nonprofit, for example, is the ADRC, Alzheimer's Dementia Resource Center. They offer program support groups. So typically, when it comes to dementia, there's various stages in the process, obviously. So depending on the stage itself will depend, how much support you will actually need. But being proactive and tapping into those resources would be instrumental. But yes, there are resources out there that families can really take advantage of and understand that there is a network to help you through this process.
And Lindsay, are there state-sponsored diagnostic resources available?
There are. Throughout the state of Florida, there's several memory disorder clinics that are supported by the Florida Department of Elder Affairs. In our Central Florida area, we have the Orlando Health, Advent Health, and Health First memory disorder clinics, and they do diagnostic evaluations for different Alzheimer's and dementia-related disorders.
I want to make sure we get in the legal aspect and legal resources. Are there specific documents that people should have, Lindsay?
There are. So, of course, it depends on their situation, but the most basics would be a power of attorney where they can designate a trusted person to act on their behalf, a will, and then a living will where they're able to lay out what their wishes may be for their medical care should they ever become incapacitated.
And what kind of legal resources are there in the community for people who are looking to maybe get that will done?
Often I always refer individuals to an elder law attorney because the state of Florida laws can be ambiguous, and you can find yourself in a lot of trouble if you don't have an expert to actually help you draw the paperwork up, especially when you're speaking about the end of life. When you complete a power of attorney, a living will, a will, healthcare surrogate, that is your one time to have control of your end of life decisions. So you want to make sure that if you need that control to moving forward, whenever you are in a position that you cannot speak for yourself, it is written correctly. Yes.
I also want to add, it is important if you do have the documents, if you've had them for a while, meaning years, you may want to get them, revised. Sure. Highly encouraged. Also, if you're from out of state and you're coming into Florida, some documents are specific to Florida law. So, as it's mentioned here, you want to make sure that those get revised by an attorney, make sure that they're still good. And being proactive in this process, again, very important. So if you haven't had that looked at in a while or ever, please do so as quickly as possible to make sure you have that set up.
Yes. Great advice. And
working with an elder law attorney can be key, but if you're not maybe able to afford to pay for an attorney on your own, there are some programs available in the community like the Legal Aid Society, the Florida Senior Legal Helpline that you can be linked to for legal assistance as well.
Excellent. And when we return, we're going to explore housing and transportation resources, Medicare and Medicaid, as well as other community support programs. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Vital Living Forum on Elder Services Network. And so far, we've talked about the helplines, dementia resources, and the legal resources available to elders and caregivers. And in this segment, we'll focus on housing and transportation programs, provide a basic framework of Medicare and Medicaid, and then highlight a few other community resources that are often accessed by older adults. Lindsay, Ignacio, and Kizzy are back with us. And Kizzy, I wanted to start with you because I wanted to find out what types of housing options are there.
Well, there's various housing options. You have the independent living, you have the assisted living communities, you have the continuity of community care facilities, And within many of those communities, you have a memory care for those individuals that need to be kept safe with dementia, advanced stages of Alzheimer's. So then you also have the memory care unit. And then the other option is remain in your home with the appropriate support.
And Lindsay, tell us about the independent housing for renters.
So independent low-income rental housing is one of the more difficult resources to find right now in Central Florida, but there are income-restricted communities that are on waiting lists that you can apply for. So you would want to call your local housing authorities, the local income-restricted communities, and apply to be on their waiting list. Then, once you're on those waiting lists, you can reach out to other community agencies that help with housing search assistance. They can help in finding rooms or efficiencies or studios to rent within your budget while you're waiting on the subsidized housing.
And are there also housing supports for low-income homeowners?
There are some available for things such as home repair. We have Rebuilding Together Central Florida in our area. Orange County has their own home repair, AC unit repair, weatherization programs that can help low-income homeowners. There's also the self-loan program where you can get a low-interest loan specifically for home repair. And there's also programs that help with utility bill payment assistance. There is the EHEAP and the LIHEAP programs for elderly and low-income individuals to help with past due electric bills.
And Kizzy, how do elders find reputable professionals to help them with things that they need fixed around the home?
There actually are a couple of websites, but oftentimes I do refer to the Elder Hotline, where they have a database of information of reputable companies. Also, I tell many people to look at Yelp. Yelp is very good. It gives a very good resource. But primarily, you like to go to the Elder Hotline, where you're going to find your information and where they have found each of these reputable companies to be vetted.
And Ignacio, tell us about the Assistive Residential Network.
Yeah, so there's communities, there's small residential homes, adult family care homes. These are specific private homes that have been converted, and they can help seniors with their care levels. So it's a good network for folks that need that specific assistance.
And are there businesses that help people navigate through the network?
Yes, there are. So there's senior placement services, and these services are typically complementary to the seniors. And what they'll do is they'll find out specifically what it is that the senior needs. So things as their culture is important, the level of care very important. So knowing exactly what the senior needs from a clinical perspective now and in the future is going to be absolutely important. Budget is another thing, of course, knowing specifically what budget is going to be important as well. And geography sometimes is also important for the family if they want specific proximity to the loved one. So these services will typically gather the information of the senior and they'll find options to match a very specific criteria, present those options to the family or the senior, and accompany them on tours, help them through the selection process. They'll also help get any medical documentation that's important, that's required as well, such as for assisted living 1823. So there's a lot to be done to navigate through this process, and typically a lot of folks don't know that because there's a lot, excuse me, there's a lot that needs to be done for that process. So yes, it's a great service.
And Lindsay, as it relates to transportation, is Lynx the main provider?
Yeah, in our area, Lynx Paratransit, or the Access Lynx program, is the main option for transportation. They provide door-to-door transportation for medical appointments and other things for free or very low cost. There are some other options out there, though, as well. There's limited assistance through the VA. There's also the American Cancer Society has transportation programs specifically for cancer-related treatment transportation. Jewish Family Services in the Orlando area has their RIDE program that helps with medical appointment transportation. And the National Kidney Foundation of Florida also has transportation for kidney disease or dialysis-related transportation.
And Kizzy, go ahead.
Now I'm going to say there are other programs from that are not based on income, like the Go-Go Parent Transportation, Uber, Lyft, and there are some smaller transportation business companies where you pay a certain amount for them to actually provide that door-to-door services as well.
And tell us about the Homemaker companion services agencies that are out there.
Sure. So there are many Homemaker companion agency services, and these services are provided generally if you're not on a Medicaid waiver program that will pay for those services. That is an out-of-pocket expense. It's not covered by a medical insurance, but those are services where you can have a person come to your home and assist you with your activities of daily living, which are your ADLs, as well as your IADLs, the instrumental activities of daily living. And that means they come help you do some light house cleaning, light house cooking, grocery shop. Social engagement is like the biggest. Keeping our seniors active, playing games with them, completing puzzles, maybe helping them find something on television, learning how to navigate their remote. So you generally receive those services. You call the Elder Helpline, you call care managers, you can find it on the websites of different types of agencies. There are smaller companion agencies and there are larger companion agencies that provide these services.
Now, for medical services, Lindsay, there are some important things to know about Medicare. And for those who don't know, what is the difference between Medicare and Medicaid?
Sure. So Medicare is federal health insurance for people that are 65 and older or people with certain disabilities. Medicaid, on the other hand, is federal and state programs that provide help with health care costs for low-income individuals. For Medicare, it would be important to know that original Medicare generally does not cover vision, dental, hearing aid services. There are some Medicare Advantage plans that can do that. Also, Medicare generally does not cover ongoing long-term care services. It can cover maybe some short-term rehab or hospice services, short-term in-home assistance, but it's not going to cover ongoing long-term care or nursing facility services.
And just to clarify, the short-term in-home assistance is normally based on what they call skilled therapy or skilled need. Mm-hmm. So generally, you would have someone come into your home to provide physical therapy, occupational therapy, maybe have a nurse come check on you once a week just to make sure you're taking your medications, but it does not provide that assistance where you have a companion care. They come into your home and do like house chores and things of that nature.
And that Medicare sounds great, but it's also kind of complicated. Is there anybody who can help to sort of walk people through the whole process of understanding Medicare and how it works?
There is. So at Senior Resource Alliance, we have the SHINE program, which stands for Serving Health Insurance Needs of Elders. And those are specially trained counselors who will provide free, unbiased education on your Medicare options and answer all of your Medicare questions.
And I will say it is important to get that knowledge and know specifically, what Medicare, Medicaid does not do. Medicare is limited to some degree, but it could be a great resource when the time comes, for sure.
And how about VA resources? Are those also available?
Yeah, so there's specific VA benefits. As a veteran myself, there are what's called the aid in attendance, for example, which is a great resource that can help pay for various things if you qualify. So knowing the criteria to qualify is important. So I would encourage folks, look that up on VA so you know the specific criteria, but it can help with costs tied to assisted living, for example, maybe private duty home health services as well. So it's something that could be tapped into as a veteran or the spouse of a veteran, or widow sometimes as well, and take advantage of that benefit.
I was going to ask you, speaking of the spouse, are there other services that can be accessed by people who are not elders?
Definitely. There are a ton of services out there for people who aren't necessarily seniors. Those are best accessed by calling 211 like we talked about earlier, but there's different food resources, food pantries, Second Harvest can help with that. The Homeless Services Network, whose goal is to prevent and end homelessness in Central Florida. So if you're not an elder, calling 211 is where you'll want to start.
Absolutely. Well, the Elder Services Network is a complex array of programming focused on supporting elders and caregivers, and this Vital Living Forum has highlighted some of those key resources and has tried to provide a framework for how to conduct your own search for services. More information about the Elder Services Network is available at www.ocfl.net/seniors, and look for the Community Resource for Elders resource document, and it's filled with information and links to community resources. I want to thank all three of you for being with us. Lindsay, Ignacio, and Kizzy, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.